takes care of you. And more than just takes care of, but has you flourish. You understand flourish?
Yes.
Yeah? All right. Knowing the answer to the question, what is the source of my way of being and acting, gives you access to the effective exercise of leadership. So, we request that right now you silently ask the question, what is the source of my way of being and acting? And ask the question the way you would if you were profoundly interested in the answer and ready to work for the answer. I know you guys already are, right? I can see it in your faces. I mean, isn't that fascinating? How do you get access to this? You know, your brain is your brain.
It's like matrix.
It's like magic, yeah, your brain. How do you program your brain? It's like, we're going to talk about programming. Since your brain decides your way of being and acting before you even show up as a conscious thought, how do you get access to that?
Program of programming.
Yeah, we're going to program your brain in this course.
But we
Or
have
you're going to program your brain, huh?
But we have decision, but our decision was made before.
Exactly. So how do you get access to that? We're gonna, right? When I'm leading, what is the source of my way of being and acting? Well,
I still don't get it. How, if I have an ice cream and I have a pizza, for example,
yeah?
and I should have to decide which one I want, how something there
Then
and
this is the
decides for
answer.
me.
Yes. The illusion is we decide. But usually decision happens when Marco would say, well, what did you decide? And you said, well, I decided the pizza. But actually the decision happens even before you even decide. We just say later that we decided as an explanation for what happens.
Can we say that
Still.
Huh?
decision to kill? Can we say that decision to kill a person was not my decision? I just decided, yeah.
But your actions are correlated to some way the world occurs for you, remember?
You think about
Way
it.
of being.
We're going to get access to this occurring business here soon. Alright? So, the source of your way of being and acting, the source of a person's way of being and acting is that their way of being and acting is correlated with the way in which they are dealing with what occurs for them. Using the meaning of correlation that we went over earlier, the relation between your way of being and acting, the way in which you're dealing with what occurs for you is, your way of being and acting is naturally, necessarily, closely connected, interrelated with the way in which you are dealing with what occurs for you. That's tough. Yeah? We're going to go over rototill this. You know what rototiller is? It's a piece of equipment a small farmer uses, and it has these tines, these blades that spin, and you put it in the ground, right? And you turn up the ground before you plant it. It's called a rototiller.
Okay.
And what a farmer does is, you know, especially a small farmer with a little garden, right? He goes down and he goes back and forth, and he keeps it up until it's rototill. We're going to rototill this, right? We're going to go back and forth over it until you get it, because this is critical. And don't leave without getting it. Okay, are saying the same thing but in different words. Your way of being and acting is always a match for, in a dance with, the way in which you are dealing with occurs for you. To repeat, your way of being and acting is naturally, necessarily, closely connected, interrelated with the way in which what you're dealing with occurs for you. For example, if the way a situation you are dealing with occurs for you as threatening, your way of being and acting will be correlated, responsive to, the situation occurring for you in that way as threatening. On the other hand, if the way a situation you're dealing with occurs for you as an opportunity to excel, your way of being and acting will be correlated with the situation occurring for you in that way, as an opportunity to excel. As we said, your way of being and your actions are correlated with, responsive to, in a dance with, the way in which what you are dealing with occurs, shows up for you. Putting it all together, your way of being and your actions, both arising as one thing, right? We'd established that your way of being and your actions arise together as your hand. And that they are naturally and necessarily closely connected, interrelated, always a match for, in a dance with, the way in which what you are dealing with occurs or shows up for you. Alright, so we're going to rototill this again. Your way of being and your actions, both arising as one thing, are naturally, necessarily, closely connected, interrelated, always a match for, in a dance with, the way in which the circumstances you are dealing with, and the circumstances in which you are dealing with whatever you are dealing with, plus the way in which you occur for yourself in dealing with whatever you're dealing with in that environment, occur or show up for you. The power of a context to use you. As we said, to master the contextual framework, that is the context that gives you the being of a leader and the actions of the effective exercise of leadership as your natural self-expression, you must first discover for yourself that the way a situation occurs for me, shows up for me, is colored and shaped by my context for that situation. And my way of being and acting are naturally, necessarily correlated with the way that situation occurs for me. We have 3 more pages. In the following statement, is there any word that you're not clear about the meaning of, or any part of the idea being conveyed that you cannot understand? We are not asking that you agree with it. The way a situation occurs for me, shows up for me, is colored and shaped by my context for that situation. And my way of being and acting are naturally, necessarily correlated with the way that situation occurs for me. Is there any word in the statement you're not clear about the meaning of, or any part of the idea being conveyed that you cannot understand? Raise your hand or send a text to me. Yes, Leila.
About the context, it says that.
The context for that situation.
Yeah, but who decides what is the context? It is we who think that is some good opportunity for me, or it's right, like
now,
this.
Yeah. Now
But
that
still
you
it's
know that, yeah.
There's a key to.
But remember that you weren't here for the Good Samaritan talk. That was yesterday. The Good Samaritan, she would have benefited from that. Watch yesterday's thing, and you'll see. And then there's this Joshua Bell playing his $4.5 million violin, and he's the best concert violinist in the world, playing the most beautiful music ever composed, and you put him in a subway. That's the context.
Yeah, I know about it. It's correct.
Oh.
But still, it also said that we don't decide anything. We are programmed for this or something like this. So how can we decide about the context?
We have to create the context.
Yeah.
How?
If our way.
Well, we're going to see about that.
Our way.
One step at a time. First, what there is to get is the way a situation occurs, and you've got it, or you wouldn't be asking this question, right? You're asking this question is standing on seeing this for yourself. That you can see that the situation occurs for you.
Yes.
It's colored and shaped by the context for that situation, and your way of being and acting are correlated to that with the way the situation occurs for you. And how it occurs for you is given by the context.
And we decide
This
how
is the
to
context,
cross.
yes, given by the way of our thinking. When we think positively, the context is positive, and we are leaders, yeah? Oh,
No.
yes?
Sort of like that, yeah. But don't
It's hard
race,
to-
don't race ahead. You want to get this on the court, okay?
Okay.
You want to get this on the court, don't race ahead, but yes, like that. Like that. Or any context, okay? This is it. Catch yourself engaging in mental causation, that our internal state causes our actions. Catch yourself in the stance. If who you are is not your internal state, who are you? That's the break assignment. Discover for yourself the way a situation occurs for me, shows up for me, is colored and shaped by my context for that situation. And my way of being and acting are naturally, necessarily correlated with the way that situation occurs for me. Does anybody have an example you would like to share about that? How much time? 20 minutes. I could bring a thing with a timer and look at it and tell all the time where we are, couldn't I? Wow, we have the technology to do that. Didn't occur for me though, until you did that. I'm like, oh. So, can anybody see a situation that occurs for you in a certain kind of way, and it's colored and shaped by your context for that situation? Does anybody?
Example?
Do you have one example?
Yes. I think that there is segregation like humanitarian elite. The people there are people who like maths, and there are people who like languages or something like that. You know.
There are people who like
maths. And
math.
yes, and there are people who like languages. And culture and something like that.
Right.
I think that it is a cliche because it depends just on what people like. When I have a friend, he was born. His mother was a teacher of maths, and he knows maths. He liked it, and he was good at maths.
Yeah.
But I was born and my mother was a teacher of English, and
Yes.
I like English,
Yeah.
and it's easy for me to do my homework from English.
Right.
But it's hard for me to do my maths homework.
Yeah.
So I'm like a leader in English. No, that's not the thing. I'm good at English, but it's hard for me to be good at maths because of the context of maths for me.
Okay. So watch that. That is actually a piece of mental causation.
Yes.
Because it's and you have this explanation about your mother and right.
Yes.
That's mental causation.
Okay.
Right. There's reasons for that.
Yes.
If you started practicing math when you started practicing English, you would have a different explanation.
Yes, I know.
You would say, I hate English because my mother taught English and I can't stand it, and that's why I went to math. You would have that reason. That would be mental causation.
So that means that there is no like I like English, I don't like maths. It just depends on what thing I'm going to work on.
Yeah, how about that?
That's okay, but it is hard to put
No,
my...
wait a minute. It is hard. Where is hard? It's an abstract. It's abstract. Yeah, there's no such thing as hard. It's a context that you just created.
Just create.
But it's actually not a context. It's a default kind of thing. So Werner doesn't like to call that a context, but it's like a default context.
Mhm.
It's hard. It's like, you're speaking that, and when that comes out of your mouth, you're speaking that into existence, and you're actually programming your brain when you say that.
I know, it was the example.
So if you want a new life, you say new things.
Yes.
It's easy. Math comes easy for me. And then you gather evidence for it. See? Look at that.
The Secret.
Huh?
Like that film, The Secret.
I like the film The Secret. Yeah.
So is it a good example of that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a context that uses. Now, you probably didn't create the context. You know,
But
you are creating this context for leader and leadership, because you're in this, and it's a creative thing, and you chose, like a leader chose, without reason. It's not a response to anything.
But we can create how we refer to that content.
yes,
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
create all that thing.
Yeah, but we're going to get into that very, very deeply.
Oh, that's nice.
Anybody else have an example? What's time? 10? 15? Great.
When you will tell us how to create how to occur all
We
the
gotta
things.
get all the pieces together first, so we don't want you, you know,
Yeah, to
it's like
discover
playing with a
ourselves.
chemistry set, and you don't wanna mix the wrong things together quite yet. There is an efficient way to go about this, that this guy's been working on for a lot of years.
To discover it by ourselves, yeah?
Yeah, what?
To discover it by ourselves.
Yes, exactly. I don't, it would be
But we are starting
a
to discover it.
disservice to you if I gave you the explanation. But you're right, you want to discover it on the court, then it's yours, just like getting on a bicycle and going down, balance is yours. You want this to be yours like balancing on a bicycle is for a bicycle rider. Yeah? Okay, what else? I have one to share with you. So I was in Odessa, in one of my very first trips to Ukraine, right? Now Ukraine, for a US kind of guy, is like a third world country. That's how we, you know, it's a third world country. Like, what? Whatever that means, it's bad, right?
But you know this stereotype about.
Well, now, wait a minute, I don't know that. I've never been here, right? I'm on Deribasovskaya Street, right? And I got an apartment there, and I'm, you know, checking things out, and I find this farmer's market at the end of Deribasovskaya, right? At the time, I didn't know they were called Rynoks. It took me a month to figure out the word Rynok, and it has a name. And so I went down to the end of Deribasovskaya Street, right? And I'm watching where I'm coming from, so I know how to get back. Now this Rynok has lots of little alleys and doors.
Yes.
So I go up the main steps, right? And I'm looking at the street signs, you know the street signs?
Mhm.
They have these letters on it that I don't know what they mean. I do not know the alphabet. I don't know how to say it. The names mean nothing to me. It might as well be a string of graphics. I have no idea, and I know that if I come out on the wrong side of this market, I'll be lost. And there will be no way for me to get back because I won't know what those street signs mean, and I can't ask anybody because nobody will be able to tell me because I don't know how to speak the language.
You could write it down.
Well, yeah, I could, but you know, you don't want to look bad, right? Remember the looking good? I want to look good. I'm cool, right? I'm cool from America, right? I got it under control. So I go in the doors, right? And I walk down there, and you know, and then there's the cheese, the dairy department is right there, and I figure where that is, and I'm keeping my eye on the door the whole time, because if I turn left, I'll never, you know, this place is huge, you can come out all kinds of different ways, right? And like you could get turned around, and I would be lost forever. That's how, that was the context is, you know, third world country, you don't know nothing, it's scary, somebody could grab you, and you know, you just like, you have to be, the context is you gotta be careful. You have to be careful, right? So, I don't know, the next trip I went, you know, I got some Russian behind me, and you know, I go in there and I'm exploring, and then pretty soon by the third or fourth trip, it's like, I dare you to lose me in anywhere in Odessa or Kiev. I will be able to find my way back, even without speaking the language, and I know enough to ask, na prava, na leva, yeah, right? I can read the signs, but the context that used me had me like. Now it's like, show me where all the Linux are in Kiev, right? Where's Dreamtown anyway? And where's Blockbuster? So it's a different. I now have access to a completely different world. I love Kiev more than I like Chicago. I'd much rather be in Kiev than in Chicago. It's way cool.
Troyeshina?
Huh?
Were you in Troyeshina?
Have you been to
Troyeshina, have you been there?
Where?
Troyeshina, it's in
It's
Kiev.
a district in Kiev.
What is it?
It's a district in Kiev.
Which district?
Troyeshina.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's
I
a
haven't
part
been
of
there.
And you will never go there.
Yeah.
It's on the left bank. I was told, don't go to the left bank.
Alright.
But then I look up, there's this epicenter on the left bank. It's huge, the biggest one in Kiev, and I'm like, okay, how can I get over there? I'll dress up like a local, you know. People come up to me on the street all the time asking me directions, and I have my red North Face coat on, like, you know, American guy. Well, all I have to do is take, if they come up and think I'm Ukrainian and start talking to me about directions, in my red North Face coat, I could take that off and easily pass as a local. I just need to kind of dress. They don't have it. Nobody has any idea. I'm asked every day. Somebody comes up and they start talking Russian or Ukrainian and say, you know, where do I find this or where do I go? And you know, next thing, yeah, anybody mind? So, how much time do you have? 10? How much?
9.
That only took 1 minute? That whole story? Just a minute? Okay, so somebody else.
No.
6 minutes.
It was 15.
It was 15.
Oh, we did, okay. All right, so somebody else, a context, a way a situation occurs for you, shows up for you, and it's colored some way. It's shaped by a context. And your way of being and acting are naturally and necessarily correlated, right? I was careful.
The thing that Steve Jobs, I think, said, that the only way to achieve to success in something is to like that thing you are doing.
What?
The only thing to succeed in something is to like that thing you're doing.
To like the thing you're doing.
Yes.
The only way to succeed.
Is it this thing or no?
No.
No, okay.
No, that's to like the thing. It works to embrace the things that you're working on. Remember this conversation?
Yes.
Bring your fun, play, and ease, and happiness and
Yes.
satisfaction. Bring your success to your projects. That is like a context. If you embrace mathematics, that will give you a different context than the context called, I'm no good at it because my mother wasn't a teacher, math teacher.
My father was a man.
Your father, see? So you are good at it secretly, but don't know it. You
Yes.
just have to bring the secret part out.
I know.
That's a context. It could use you.
If you create the context, so then this context situation occurs for us like we want, like we see it, like we desire it. So
That's really close. That's really close.
We can create how we occur to the context. Like
Yeah.
how we think about this context.
The
and what
context
it gives us.
Alters how it occurs. And it occurs in such a way that being a leader and exercising leadership is a natural self-expression.
Yes.
So you create the context that alters the occurring, and your actions, whatever they are perfectly correlated given the context, given the new context.
Okay.
Right?
So it's just not a false creation. It's just ourselves, our being, the way how we are. The new context is not a false creation. It's just the thing that we are. We just find it in ourselves.
Where do you, so your question is where do you get a context? I mean,
No. I just think that we don't create the context. The context, the new context,
Yeah?
is already inside. We just have to find it.
Yeah, it's
No.
not.
No, it's not already inside. There's nothing inside but blood and guts in your brain. There's really nothing inside. That's what's inside. Yes, if we cut you open, we wouldn't find any of that inside. You know.
We are not the thing that we think we are. We're just the way of being. And
Yes.
we can be anyone.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now there's a certain impact, certain ways of being provide certain things, and we'll look at that.
Okay.
Yeah? Anything else? At least you come and have some fun, right? By the end, anyway.
No,
I have a question. Can the same context occurs for us in a different way? For example, when we were 10 years old and when we were 15. Can the same context occur differently?
Yeah, well, those, Werner, when you start talking about the past, there's a certain automaticity associated with it, and it's not really a created context. It's circumstances and the conditions in which the circumstances are happening. So, what I would submit to you is that you weren't even there to create the context. It's just a decision happened and you weren't creating a context as a creation. It was just the kind of the way life is and some decisions we made. Right? So when I walked in on my parents, right, remember that story? And that was humiliating and embarrassing, and I decided I was stupid and not smart, and then that wasn't creating a context. That was more of a survival-based kind of thing that I needed to put together to survive. What you're going to create is something that gives you more than just survival. Because survival just has me survive. And in fact, the more I use this being smart to compensate for the dumb thing that I did, the more I use that, the bigger the failure to be becomes. So the more I use a strategy, the more it says that there's something wrong. So those kinds of decisions, and we're going to get into those, really don't come down on the side of living a fulfilled life. Can you see that?
Okay. And one more question. Why should we sit like мужчина, женщина, женщина?
No reason.
No reason?
No reason.
Yes, you said
My brain decided that,
No.
and now you want me to give you a reason? It's just going to be a reason. It will just be something I made up.
Okay, what's all the
But it's because Werner did it in a previous course. It's because I did it in some other thing. It's because to keep this side from giggling so much. It's because when you sit in different places, you have different points of view.
we have
You
different
guys-
context.
You got
We have different context.
different context, exactly. If you guys sit over there and run an experiment to see what it's like to sit on that side of the room, it's going to give you access to something different than sitting together on this side of the room is going to give you, because you're only stuck with this point of view,
Okay.
right? So you try different points of views and see what opens up. That's a good reason, right?
Yeah.
My brain decided that before it came out of my mouth. But you like that one, so I'm going to stick with that one, see?
Basically,
Anything else?
I have a question.
program your brain. And programming your brain is like creating a context. Things will occur for you consistent with that context, and your actions will be correlated perfectly to that.
So we will program our brain to work good for us in the right way.
Why would you want to do it bad?
So it's good.
Yeah,
Maybe she
well,
loves
we'll see as we go along. As we go along, we'll see more and more into that. Okay? It's something you need to see on the court.
So in this thing, we can say that everybody in the world have that he wants to have. And
Actually, that is true. Everybody has in their life what they want to have, even though they say they don't. Not really.
oh, that's everyone having lives.
Hmm?
Everyone having lives.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You know, one quick thing. 1 minute. Okay, good. 1 minute. one quick thing. You know, people do things around you, around us. People do things. And we come up with an explanation of why they do things, right? Try on that there's a context, and the world occurs for them in a certain way, and their behaviors are perfectly correlated to how that world occurs for them. They aren't, like people aren't particular, or they aren't stupid or dumb or smart, or they don't do, you know, people do things and it looks like that was really stupid. What are they thinking? Like, right? But we're judging it from our world. If you could get in their world, it really makes perfect sense because their actions are perfectly correlated with the way the world occurs for them. Their occurring is different than yours, but if you could get into their world and see how the world occurs for them, you can actually start moving their world around because you can shift people's occurring. You can program their brains, actually.
Yeah. We'll learn that
Kind
in
of.
our sociology classes.
Huh?
Because we are in
Yeah.
studying sociology. And
Yeah.
we need to learn.
Yeah.
Just change point of view.
Yeah, but this is not sociology, this is ontology. This is art and science of being, how human beings be. And people be, their actions are perfectly correlated with how the world occurs for them.
Yes.
And you put them in these certain circumstances and these certain conditions, and their actions will be perfectly correlated to that, even though it won't make any sense to you. It makes sense to them, given their past decisions they made, context. Alright? Okay, cool. Great job.
I can't see to them.